Game day.
Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10. You're here with JP and Quentin. What's up, bro?
Hey, man. We're heading into the combines next week, so we're starting to get into the full swing of draft season. I got a prospect that I'm going to talk about near the end of the show, just for everybody to keep an eye on. Somebody I think the Chiefs will be interested in. Somebody that I'm at least interested in and think that would really work well for the Chiefs. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. The Twitter GMs are out in full effect.
Oh, yeah.
They started early this year. Wow. I mean, you go to a Super Bowl and the GMs are out like immediately on Twitter. It's crazy, man.
Honestly,
I didn't know there were so many.
I'm surprised that we haven't seen more Chiefs fans ask to get the linebacker from the Rams that they just cut. Bobby Wagner.
Oh, that's already been a full topic shit, dude. I've been on some, believe me, I'm in some group chats, man, and everybody's talking about this. Dude, this fucking media in Kansas City, because of the dumb ass shit that AJ Brown put out. My cousin aunt agent from Yugoslavia said that they reached out to me. Man, they didn't ask to sign a contract with you. Veach reaches out to everybody. You're not special. He reaches out to everyone. If you're a free agent, he's going to inquire about you. He didn't offer you a contract. I mean, it's that simple. He didn't want you. We didn't need you. We won the Super Bowl. You didn't. So quit making a big deal about it. Just because you wore a Royals hat and said that doesn't mean shit. And now, all of a sudden, the Kansas City media is talking, oh, we're going after D-Hop. We went after A.J. Brown. We're definitely going after D-Hop. Come on, man.
Look, we're in March Madness hasn't started yet.
No, KC Madness is going.
We've got baseball hasn't quite started yet, and we're in that sort of dead season of sports. So you gotta come up with stuff to talk about.
God, the clickbait is, man. I am in a couple of group chats that I had to almost leave. I mean, these guys are talking some crazy snap. I mean, from we're signing D-Hop to we're definitely not bringing back Chris Jones. We're going to dump Orlando Brown. We're going to everybody's going to be new. It's just insane, the crap that these people come up with. I swear, it's like they must have some fly on the wall somewhere reading all this crap that Veach is supposed to be doing. He's not doing any of that.
Hey.
He's going to retain as many players as he can from a Super Bowl year that got him there, and especially the younger guys. What's up, Chiefs Live? Especially the younger guys that they really are just not getting into the system. I mean, you got a great offensive line. Why not hang on to it? It's just insane. These Chiefs GMs are funny. No matter how you look at it. There's a lot of GMs inside the organization. I bet Veach had no clue he had so many partners.
Yeah, it makes it easier when you're able to get a hold of the NFL script, and you can really project what's going to happen. You're just reading off of the script that the NFL hands out to everybody via Twitter.
So. Apparently it got leaked. But yeah, it's been pretty insane to listen to all these fools. Let's get into this Orlando Brown situation, because some idiots out on Twitter put out that he had more pressures than Andrew Wiley. He did not. That is an absolute falsehood. PFF put out the real numbers, not the Eisen numbers, not the Arrowhead report numbers, not the Jack Leg numbers off to the corner. The real numbers have been put out, which we already knew. He allowed 4 sacks on the season. Period. He was fourth in left tackles this season as far as the pass rush was concerned. He had a rough beginning of the season. He cleaned it up. It was footwork. He cleaned his stance. He fixed that problem and he moved forward. I don't know where the hell these people are coming up with this crap. I guess you have some hatred towards Orlando Brown. Get over yourself, because he's not going anywhere. They're going to tag him and work the deal out.
Yeah, actually, what? I put out a Twitter poll. I'll pull that up and I'll keep talking about what I think about the Orlando Brown situation. I don't think that many Chiefs fans think Orlando Brown is a bad player. I think that most Chiefs fans feel like that Orlando Brown is a quality left tackle and is a benefit to this team and does not, not a detriment to this team in any way. I think the problem that most Chiefs fans, I'm real though.
I know.
I think that the problem that Chiefs fans have with Orlando Brown is the fact that when we signed him here, he immediately wanted to become the number one paid left tackle, despite the fact he was a right tackle and had just switched to left tackle and had never proven himself to be the number one left tackle. And then on top of that, he comes in and he struggles off the gate. And so I think that sort of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So I put out this Twitter poll 2 days ago, and I just said, today is the first day teams can franchise tag players. You know, what does Chiefs Kingdom think about Orlando Brown? And my 4 options were franchise tag and work out a deal, 5 years, $125 million, or let him walk. Okay, those are my 4 options. Half of the participants chose tag and work out a deal. 27% chose just the franchise tag. And then 11% went with the 5-year, $125 million and let him walk. So there was a 11% split on those 2 options. And I came up with the 5-year, $125 million because you figure that he's going to get, that would put him at over $25 million, or that would put him over at $20 million a year, which is probably what he's going to end up getting. So
Yeah. I mean,
that's where I didn't pull that number just out of nowhere. You know, I figure he's probably going to end up, his APY is probably going to be $22 million a year, something like that.
I mean, the second highest paid left tackle is right around 23. So, you know, and he's overly paid. And Orlando Brown's better than him. So, regardless, actually, I think he's paid less than 23. But I think the 11% that you found are the 11% that's really stupid on Twitter, because they're out there spouting off about how Orlando Brown's terrible. He's the weak link. Man, did you not see Wiley play the entire season except for the Super Bowl? Honest to God. Okay, first of all, let's compare. When it came down to pressures, the real number, Wiley allowed 50%. He had a 56% pressure rate. 56%. That's real numbers. He also allowed 13 of the 26 sacks on Mahomes this season. 13. Let's look at Orlando Brown. He had a 36% pressure rate and allowed 4 sacks. The 36% mainly came in the first 5 games of the season. Wiley stretched his out over 17 weeks. I'm sorry, 16 weeks. No, 17 weeks. And during the playoffs, the first game of the playoffs, he didn't do the greatest. Second game, Super Bowl, phenomenal performance by Wiley. Phenomenal. He had one great game out of, 20 games? One phenomenal game. One flawless game out of 20. I mean, I seen Wiley with this look on his face. I can picture the look on his face at least 9 times this season. That was him getting a penalty. Come on, man. What are you talking about? I didn't hold him. What do you mean I had my arm around his neck? That was Wiley. Or reaching down to pick Mahomes up off the ground. That was Wiley. We didn't see Orlando Brown doing that a whole lot. Sadly, that's his weak side. So, it makes 0 sense to me how everybody is so hard on Orlando Brown. He's younger. I tell you what it is. Wiley played for $2 million. You get what you can pay for sometimes. He had one good game throughout the season. If you're going to allow almost half the amount, he actually did allow half of the sacks. And there's no almost. He allowed half of the sacks that Mahomes had on the season. Come on, man. It is what it is, dude. I mean, they could say what they want about Orlando Brown, but he's 26 years old. He's got a lot of life left in him. He's just going to get better. He worked out his footwork issue, or his stance issue. He came on strong the rest of the season. Get off his back. I mean, it is what it is. You don't like him, but don't say he's a bad player. And don't say he's not worth, At least, yeah, you've had people. He's not elite. Well, find me somebody that's better than him that's on the free agent market right now. Go find me one person.
I think that's the thing that's missing a lot of the times when we end up talking about, like, okay, we have this player and, we want to get rid of him. We want to get better. We want to move on from him, like Orlando Brown. And the part is like, okay, what's the solution? What's the next step after that? What if you do trade Orlando Brown and get a second round pick for Orlando Brown? Okay, then what? Do you really want to have a rookie left tackle, or you want to go out and trade for another left tackle? Well, if you trade for another tackle, you're going to have to sign them to a long-term deal too, because that's just how this works.
Exactly.
Right? You go and you trade for a long-term tackle, the odds are that tackle is coming towards the end of his deal and you're going to have to pay him too. So, I think that sort of nuance gets left out of some of the discussion when you have people that talk about trying to move on from a player, especially from a premier position, which left tackle is, and you just leave out okay, what's the next step? The other thing is
what's up, Will?
The other thing is that this draft class is not very deep in the tackle position.
No.
There's probably 2 guys that'll end up going in the early first round, and that's being really nice. Yeah. This is a very deep defensive line class. It's pretty deep at the running back position and the corner spot again.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 positions that have the most depth, and it's just hard for me to see the Chiefs going out and trying to replace both tackles in one offseason when you already have a quality guy in Orlando Brown.
Exactly.
And the last thing that I'm going to say on this, and then I'll listen to your thoughts, is that the Chiefs can afford Orlando Brown by doing one move. All they have to do is extend Chris Jones or Frank Clark. That's it.
So
that's all they have to do. Once they do that, once they give Chris Jones his, add 3 years to his contract, convert his cap hit into a signing bonus and prorate that over the next 3 years of his contract, you can save the $15 million. Chris Jones gets that money up front, and you can then add that onto Orlando Brown's contract. And you can afford Orlando Brown. If the Chiefs franchise tag him and are unable to work out a long-term deal, the problem becomes that that contract becomes fully guaranteed. The $20 million you're going to pay him becomes fully guaranteed for that season. There is no cap flexibility on it whatsoever. And his franchise tag is going to be more expensive than a normal franchise tag because this is the second time you're doing it. And the second time around, you add 20% onto whatever that franchise tag would normally be.
Correct. And you're paying him out of the top 5, average of the top 5
yeah.
players in the league. Here's another thing that people don't really take into consideration. This is not a normal offense. We don't have a Tom Brady. We don't have a Derek Carr. We don't have Ryan Tannehill. I can name off 20 others. To groom an offensive lineman, left tackle, especially a left tackle, to be able to withstand playing with a Mahomes, to learn his tendencies, is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult to do. So what are you going to do? Are you going to trust a rookie? I had a guy on Twitter that said, I'd rather draft a left tackle and get rid of Orlando Brown. I don't want Orlando Brown protecting Patrick Mahomes because he's not good enough to protect Patrick Mahomes. So what you're saying to me is that you would rather have a guy out of college that has zero experience protecting a guy like Patrick Mahomes, that is maneuverable, that runs all over the place, unpredictable, you have no clue what he's going to do, or you would rather have a guy that's been there for 2 years, that has learned his tendencies, that's cleaned up his footwork, that's learned the left tackle position, and is ranked 4th in the league. I would much rather have Orlando Brown.
I think that point you bring up is something that also doesn't get talked about, especially here in Kansas City a lot. That Orlando Brown or that Patrick Mahomes is so I don't want to say weird because I don't think that's the right word, but unpredictable in the backfield. And when he is moving around in the pocket, a lot of times a tackle is actually winning their rep. And then Mahomes will do the spin around. He'll run the other direction, and the tackle has his man locked up. And then Mahomes starts doing his thing.
He does his joystick shit.
And then what will happen is the tackle's doing his job. He has him locked up, and then Mahomes, runs around. And then all of a sudden, it's not the tackle's fault. It's Patrick Mahomes' fault that
it is.
The tackle loses leverage,
exactly.
And that defensive lineman is able to get by him. So I think that is a very good point. That there is a point there that we talk about how important it is for the quarterback and the wide receivers to be synced up and to know what they're thinking. Well, when you have a mobile quarterback and you don't have a guy that's just standing in the pocket and throwing outside the pocket the entire game, your linemen need to have somewhat of an idea of how this quarterback is going to run an offense, and Orlando Brown knows that. So if you have the ability to keep a quality player at a premium position, then I think that you should do it, especially when the money is there. You have so many guys on rookie contracts. The Chiefs are probably going to end up with 11 picks because the projection as of now is they're going to get 2 comp picks on top of the 9 draft picks that they have now. So, you have a lot of ammo to be able to continue to keep this team young. So pay Orlando Brown a quality salary and keep him at the premier position.
Absolutely.
So we don't have to go through what happened in the Super Bowl a few years ago where your offensive line is just in pure shambles and, you can keep an Orlando Brown around and we could just move on with this.
Absolutely. There's been some coaching moves. Hey, how about this? Vance Joseph did the 360. He's back in Denver.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but he sucks as a defensive coordinator. And I don't know about you, but I'm fairly happy with that move. I don't know. Look, man, we were kind of worried about this whole situation. And, I mean, I don't know about worried, but concerned, I guess I should say. Maybe they were going to be a little bit better. Maybe, Sean Payton's going to bring something to the table. Who knows? But then he goes and brings Vance Joseph in, which has been proven to have problems. I shouldn't say he sucks. He's not. He's in the NFL for a reason. I shouldn't say that. I'm a little fired up today. But he's not very good. Makes me a little happy. What do you think?
I think that there was a lot of discussion today on the internet about how weird it is for a former former head coach to come back as a defensive coordinator. The Chiefs did that in the 90s with Gunther Cunningham.
Yes,
by the way,
did.
I don't know if other people know that or not, but the Chiefs did that exact same thing. Now, it is weird. It's weird to come back to the same place that fired you, 3 years ago, I think? The same place that fired you and then come and take a quote-unquote lesser role. It is kind of weird. Now, new ownership and everything, but I do think that it's got to be a little awkward walking into the room, but.
Well, I guess it's no different than if you really look at it, even if you're not fired, if you're fired if you take a head coaching job and you're fired from the other team and then you come back to the same team you were at as an offensive coordinator or assistant head coach or whatever the case may be, quarterback's coach, it's a little awkward walking back into the room, because you were a head coach, you were the top dog and now you're not again.
Yeah.
But you're still damn good at what you do in some degree. So
yeah, I think the Broncos are going to be interesting to watch because I've been sort of interested in what they do because I'm trying to think about how improved are they going to be moving forward. And if it weren't for the dysfunction in Las Vegas right now, I would just hammer down my point that they're going to finish last in the division again. But I'm not sure just because of how god-awful the Raiders are that I'm ready to double down on that point yet. I will say this.
They suck so bad. They suck so
They do.
bad, dude.
They do. It's really funny. I really want to think about what does that defense have? And they have a good back four corners, safeties.
Yeah.
They don't have Bradley Chubb anymore. They have a lot of free agents that are supposed to be leaving that defense too. So we'll see what happens with that defense. But if they don't add talent and you have a, let's just say, average defensive coordinator, I don't think he's bad enough to where he's not going to get the talent out of his guys, but I don't know if he's good enough to where he's going to bring guys up to the next level like a Vic Fangio would have and did. So we'll see what happens. It's definitely an interesting pickup, just, from the storyline of it that you got fired there 3 years ago, and now you're back.
Well, you see this a lot in the NFL. Coaches end up back where they were. I don't know. It's just weird to me that out of all the people that he could have picked, he went with Vance Joseph. I think that's strange.
Yeah. Well, there were 3 candidates for the job. It was Matt Patricia, Rex Ryan, and the guy they ended up hiring. So out of those 3, I mean, Rex Ryan's been out of the league and been sitting at a TV desk for, 7 years or something like that. I mean, that didn't stop the Colts. But then you've got Matt Patricia, who, I mean, seems like a good defensive coordinator, but I don't know if I want to bring all that drama inside of my, organization. So it's probably the best out of all the guys that they were talking to.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think Rex Ryan has lost it. I would much rather have Vance Joseph there as a Chiefs fan versus Rex Ryan. I say that because I don't think Rex Ryan has lost any step in any pep in his step. I think that maybe it was an advantage for the Chiefs to actually for him not to be picked, because I don't think he's lost any of his mindset when it comes to being a defensive coordinator. The one thing that I was wondering at one time, I was kind of thinking, okay, what if he somehow ends up with Fangio? Somehow just pulls something out of his butt, even though he's signed with somebody else. What if he pulls something out of his butt? Who knows?
I was worried that Vic Fangio was going to go back to Denver, because Vic Fangio is a hell of a defensive coordinator, but he went to Miami. So I did not want him to go to Denver, because he was one of the guys that, even though he never beat Kansas City, his defenses were never a walk in the park, even when he had lesser talent there. So Vic Fangio is a really good defensive coordinator, and I did not want to see Vic Fangio back in Denver.
I don't want to see him in the AFC, period. But, regardless if he's, he was with, wasn't he with the Ravens for a while? Afterwards? No, that was Wink Martindale, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever his name is. Bink, whatever his name is. Dink. What's his name, guys, in the chat? Is it Wink Martindale?
I think it's Wink
Sounds
Martindale.
like a game show host out of the 60s or something.
All you got to say, if you say his name really fast, nobody will notice you're wrong.
Yeah.
You just got to say it fast and with confidence.
I remember it. It sounds like Wink Martindale. It's like a game show host out of the 60s. But anyway, I know he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. I just don't know what he's done lately. But regardless, I'm just glad he's not there. There's been some, now we can move on from that really quick, because I just wanted to bring up the Vance Joseph thing because I thought it was kind of comical. Really quick, there hasn't been any chatter that I've seen yet. Well, actually, I take that back. Somebody did bring it up, and I think it was Steve Reich or whatever his name is, the one on NFL Network. He can't stop himself. It's almost like it's embedded in his head that he has to say the Chargers are going to win the AFC West again. He's done it every year. I've made fun of him every year on Twitter. He argues with me on Twitter. We get into this little fighting match, and then we laugh about it and move on. He's from, if anybody knows who he is, he's on NFL Network. He's actually from St. Louis, and weirdly enough, he's a baseball fan, but he reports on football.
I mean, I'm a football fan that reports. That's not true. I'm a fan of baseball, too.
You are. But he's a really cool guy. He actually, weirdly enough, remembered me when I played my very short stint in baseball. But that's how we got kind of hooked up on Twitter. But anyway, he just loves to stick it to the Chiefs. And I don't know why. He's from St. Louis. Maybe he was a Cardinals fan. I don't know what it is. But He just loves to rub it in and say that the Chargers are going to go to the playoffs and they're going to win the AFC West and they're going to be the God's gift to everything. He actually brought it up again on NFL Network that he thinks this is the Chargers' year. Now, mind you, everybody, he has said this now. I want to say the first time I heard him say it was 2014 or 15. That's how far this goes back. Now, this is a rivalry with a lot of people, but between him and I, this has been going on since, I think, 15. And it's been funny since 15. We've had our little spats. But anyway, he was the first person this year that said Chargers are going to make the playoffs. They're going to win the AFC West. The Chiefs are going to dismantle. Veach has to make a mistake. Mahomes at some point has to regress. It's been 5 years now. He has to regress at some point. That's another thing I've heard. But they are losing a couple of players. From what I understand, what's his name? Mike, that wide receiver. The one that's injured.
They have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams.
Mike Williams. From what I understand, Mike Williams is probably not going to be back. From what I understand, Keenan Williams probably won't be back.
Yeah, there's reports that Keenan Allen is probably going to get cut, and that there's actually going to be a couple of guys that are going to be cut for cap saving measures. Correct. Left guard, I believe, is one of the guys that they're thinking about.
Which cutting. Is a mistake, but
there's discussion about Khalil Mack. Either I can't remember.
Khalil Mack, I heard is done. Yeah. It's either he's going to get cut or his contract's going to get restructured. Yeah. They have a lot of moves that they have to make in order to become cap compliant, and which is my favorite phrase now. You have to become cap compliant. OSHA's walking around trying to make sure you're not, putting forklifts on forklifts with a ladder. The cap EPA is out there for him.
Yeah. So, you have to become cap compliant. So that there's going to be a bunch of teams, which sort of leads us into our next point about how everybody wants to trade for D-Hop. What do you think about
I don't, but everybody else does.
I know. I don't understand it, but what do you think about if the Chiefs aren't able to get a Juju back? What do you think about the Chiefs picking up either Mike Williams or Keenan Allen as on a relatively cheap one-year deal because, they're going to end up off of the Chargers?
Okay, so
I think this is a more realistic situation than trading for anybody.
Okay, so look, I don't think either one of them is going to happen, but on the outside chance it does, the really outside chance it does, I'm talking about, really outside chance, it's going to have to be a very structured contract, a very team-friendly contract, and they are really going to have to understand that they are not the number one dog, because that's what they're accustomed to. Now, as far as D-Hop is concerned, I was a little concerned with his mental state when it comes to that situation, because I know he's used to being the top dog, and I didn't know how his ego was. I didn't know if he was going to have that giant ego that other players have had in the past.
Diva wide receivers.
The diva wide receivers. The OBJs of the past. Just guys like that. So regardless, I asked around, and I've heard that he is not that way. They say he's actually a pretty humble guy for the most part. He is not like a Stephon Diggs. I'm that guy. I'm the guy. All that shit. As he lost a game. He's just a pretty humble guy. Now, with that being said, it's really going to depend on what he wants for contract at 31 years old, and what his mindset is. If he wants to come in as a peg in a cog in the wheel, that's great. If he wants to come in as what's up, Diz? If he wants to come in as the number one guy and expect he's going to get everything, not going to happen. But I will say this: do not count out Juju, because I can tell you this: he came in for $5 million. That was his contract last year. Now, He got his incentives. When he found out that he got that extra, he didn't even know he was getting that extra $1 million to play in the Super Bowl. He found out on the field after the Super Bowl. Excited as can be. Made $6 million to play for the Chiefs last year. Actually, he made almost $7 million with the playoff incentives. So he's going to want a little bit more money. He's not going to ask for stupid money.
I have seen his projections on sites like Over the Cap that do all sorts of contracts, projection and stuff. I've seen anywhere from 12 to $15 million seems to be the range from what his value is in terms of his production and over his career. The thing I will say on that is that what's missing out of that is that this is a very bad free agency class and not a great wide receiver draft class. So with little supply, he could end up getting that big contract from somebody else because there could be a team desperate enough to try and get a quality wide receiver to their team.
Here's the difference with him. Think backwards, Quentin. When he was with Pittsburgh, that last season he was with them, you know why he went back? There was 2 reasons. Only 2. One, one of the main reasons was because of Tyreek. He didn't want to be the D-Rob of the situation. But the main reason the real reason was comfortability. He loves playing in Kansas City. He's not the most greedy guy. He's not the OBJs of the world. He's not the A.J. Browns of the world. I think he'll come in at probably a 3 or a 4 deal. And look, Veach's smart. If he signed him to a 4 or 5 year deal at, even if it was $14 million a year, you got an out at 4 years on a 5 year deal. Sometimes you got an out at a 3 year deal. On 3 years, I mean.
Yeah, most NFL contracts are 2 or 3 year deals, even if they're even the Von Miller contract, which is a 6 year deal, is more like a 3 year deal.
Exactly.
The only guys that get these huge deals are Patrick Mahomes and, for some god freaking reason, Ezekiel Elliott
and Deshaun Watson.
But he's a quarterback.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, he's going to get a deal. I think he wants to stay in Kansas City. He will take a deal that's more team friendly and friendly to him to stay here. He's productive. I know Mahomes wants him back, and I know the team wants him back. I don't think he's going anywhere. The guy was very productive, being injured twice this year. Hit almost 900 yards, helped us win a Super Bowl. You think he doesn't want a couple more rings and a couple more $1 million to play in Super Bowls? I wouldn't see him going anywhere over a couple $1 million a year. He's not going to pull a Tyreek. And I don't think any other team is going to go out there and offer him $18 million a year to go play for them.
Hey, I still think that he stays in Kansas City. I think that, the Chiefs, I don't think McCole Hardman comes back. But I think
I know
that
where I think he's going.
I think Juju Smith-Schuster does come back, but it wouldn't surprise me if, on the 3rd day of free agency, we hear that Team X has offered Juju Smith-Schuster this $18.5 million 3-year deal that, and he goes and he ends up taking it. That wouldn't surprise me. People keep talking about that Christian Kirk deal, we're low 20s type stuff. I don't think that Juju Smith-Schuster is necessarily worth that. I think he fits well here in Kansas City. He seems to have a good relationship with everybody. You didn't hear a lot of the crap that came out of the locker room when he was in Pittsburgh. That didn't happen here in Kansas City. So I do think that there is some value and comfortability and stuff like that. But, it's hard to turn down a huge payday if it really is, that significant. So,
also,
and like I said,
go ahead, sorry to interrupt you. Think about it like this. How many teams are going to offer him a big contract when he's got his knee looming over him? 2 injuries
you got to
pass.
Pass physical and all that stuff. But there have been more risky big free agent signings. That's the thing, is that most of the time in free agency, you're overpaying for players to begin with, especially in those first couple of days when the big name guys come out. I just don't think I can emphasize enough that how bad the free agent class is, and that right there is going to inflate your value.
Hey,
It's why the
do
running
something
back
really
class.
quick. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's why the running back class is so bad to be a free agent this year in the running back, because there's so many quality running backs as free agents as well as the draft class. So if you're a top end running back who is a free agent this year, you're not going to get as much money as if you would have been a free agent even last year, just because the talent level is there. There's so much high of a supply, it lowers your value.
Well, here I'm gonna put a clip up really quick, and this is just a little bit of what Juju has done for us during the season, and you can kind of see some of the things he's done. Take a look at this, guys.
Holmes has time. Over the middle. Has his man. It's caught by Smith-Schuster for a first down. Kadarius Toney in the backfield now along with Jerick Kittle. Toney goes away. Mahomes looking to throw. Wanted Toney. Instead has Schuster open again. Juju Smith-Schuster heating up on this drive. Quick throw. Toney's got it. Toney walks in. Touchdown, Kansas City. Third and 2. Blitz coming. Hurts it.
What you didn't, what I noticed there on that last touchdown with Toney, and what a lot of people don't notice, is that Juju drew off. Juju was on the other side of the field. He drew so much attention because I think he caught 3 passes in that series, and he drew so much attention that it allowed the corn dog to happen, because he's just that guy. When you get him in that rhythm, he's able to do so much. And I think that's the part that people are underestimating about him in our system. He's learned our system really well. I think Veach sees that. I know Mahomes loves him. He's only 26 years old. He is getting his knee worked on. Actually, right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think he comes back.
I think that Juju Smith-Schuster is a 900 to 1,100 yard receiver, somewhere in there. Some years he'll break through that 1,000-yard mark, right? That's the barrier that we use as what's a quality receiver. I think he's right there on the fringe. He almost hit the 1,000 yards this year.
He's 100 yards short.
Yeah, if he didn't get that concussion, you could make a really fair argument that he would have gotten that 1,000 yards, but he still missed time. So I do think that he's quality on this team. There's value there. He fits well. All of that stuff is true. And there are times where he does just sort of take over games, right?
Oh, yeah.
All of that is true. It's that there are other teams that just may value him more because, let's take an example like the Bears, right? The Bears are in desperate need of wide receiver help. The Bears would be a great example of a team. You're paying a rookie quarterback, and you need somebody to come in there. So we're going to give you a fat paycheck because we have an insane amount of cap space and a rookie quarterback that needs a steady wide receiver. The Bears would be a team that may try and steal Juju away from us.
I agree, but here's the thing. Juju's an extremely intelligent individual. I'm going to give him this. He's so smart, and he's not just from a football standpoint, but from a business standpoint. Why in the hell would he ever want to go play for a desolate dumpster fire of a franchise and never have any kind of recognition whatsoever? When he already went through hell with the situation in Pittsburgh. Not that they're a bad franchise, and not that Mike Tomlin's a bad coach, because he's not. But he went through all that shit with Roethlisberger and AB and Le'Veon Bell and played second fiddle for all that time. To go to a franchise that is going to shit on every head coach and every quarterback and every offensive lineman and defensive lineman and running back and everybody else that they have. Look, Justin Fields is wasting his career there. And I don't believe for one second that any good... That's why Allen Robinson wanted out. He wanted out. He wanted to come here, and Nagy couldn't get it pulled off because the GM or the owner wouldn't let him do it. He was going to make a trade for... I'll tell you right now, flat out, this was the trade. I don't care what anybody says. They were going to take, at the time, LDT, Demarcus Robinson, and it was either a pick or another player, and we were going to take Allen Robinson. That was the deal in 2021. That was the deal, and they would not allow Nagy to do it. The ownership wouldn't allow him to do it. Robinson wanted out. He did not want to be there any longer. The trade was set. They turned him down. That was the deal. They refused to do it. Well, LDT sat on the fucking sidelines and didn't play a snap. That deal was set and done, and they refused it. That is a dumpster fire of an organization. I don't believe he would ever go there. I just don't see it happening. I don't know. Look, I mean, he's made it really clear he wants to stay here. There's probably, and if Veach works out a deal with him prior to anybody making him some fat ass offer, sign it, get it done. Why wouldn't you? I'd much rather have him, somebody that actually gives a shit about the team, cares about the fans care about him, than somebody else coming in and have to learn this playbook.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Especially
anyway.
when you have so many other younger guys in general. I have the list of all the unrestricted free agents in front of me. So we're going to just come out with names, and then you tell me what you think about whether or not they can stay or go. Just for reference, this does not include guys like Chris Jones and Frank Clark, who are still technically under contract. This is literally just guys that are unrestricted free agents. Correct. And I'm going to kick out names that don't matter, like Chad Henne. Okay? Because he retired.
Chad Henne retired, yeah.
Right. So, but technically, he's an unrestricted. So I'm going to leave out guys that don't matter. I'm just running through the list, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so first on the list, Nick Allegretti. What do you think? Do you think he stays here with Kansas City or he goes somewhere else?
I mean, technically, he could stay just because he's an extremely low cap hit. I mean, $1 million a year?
Yeah.
So, technically, he could stay. I would probably say maybe. He's probably on the high end of maybe just because he cost us nothing to be here. You're right, Thiz. He's right. He's absolutely right. Go ahead. Who's the next one?
Andrew Wiley.
Man, I don't think he's staying.
Yeah.
I mean, even though he's dirt cheap, it was $2 million for this last season.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was, in my opinion, after allowing 13 sacks and 56% on pressure rate, I think it was $2 million too much, or $1 million too much. But that's just me. And people are out there blaming Orlando Brown because of Mahomes' ankle injury. Not the reason why, but you can blame whoever you want. It wasn't Wiley's fault either, but you can't blame Orlando Brown for that. Go on.
I have Orlando Brown here, but we have both of them getting franchise tags, so we can just move on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Jerick McKinnon.
Yes, I think he comes back. He loves this team, and the Chiefs love him.
Yeah, I also
let
think
me put out a stat really quick. Do you realize he had 10 touchdowns, 9 of them were passing touchdowns.
Yeah, he led the running backs in passing touchdowns.
Yeah, 9 of them.
Touchdowns.
Yeah, receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, and he was at the start of the year the third running back on the depth chart. So
Thiz thinks that Wiley should get paid by some teams. He may. I don't think he's going to get paid by the Chiefs because he did allow the most pressures and the most sacks on Mahomes out of anybody. He actually had the most penalties out of any offensive lineman on the team.
Yeah, but there are some bad offensive lines out there. So
there is, and that's why Thiz is right. I mean, that's why I'm agreeing with him because there are some bad offensive. I mean,
Plus,
look at the fucking Bengals.
Like I said, this is a bad tackle class. and it's not a great free agent class either. So when you
not at
sign
all.
people in free agency, you generally overpay for them. That's just the way this works.
No, he gets replaced with Prince or anybody else on our team.
I'll give you my right tackle position here after this. McCole Hardman, I think the Chiefs move on from him. I don't think there's a spot left for him on the roster for McCole. But what do you think about McCole Hardman?
I heard something about McCole. I don't want to say. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I heard that a certain team wants him, or a certain offensive coordinator wants him. Hint, hint. And I heard that might happen. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw out anything other than that right now. But that's what I
Okay.
heard.
Yeah, we just spent a bunch of time talking about Juju. So Carlos Dunlap is the next guy on my list.
You know what? I'm hoping he comes back. I think, from what I've heard, they want him back. He's a great veteran presence. He's not a lot of money, and he batted down a ball in every game for 17 games. I want him back.
Yeah. This isn't what you think. This isn't what you want. What do you
Oh well, then
think?
fuck it. I think he comes. Okay, let me take my emotions out of it.
Yeah.
If I go by his play, the man batted down a pass in every game he was in. He created havoc in every game he was in. He should come back for what he's paid. He's still playing at a very high level. At 34 years old, going to be 35, he didn't slow down a bit. For what he's being paid, he should definitely come back. Oh, go ahead. I'm going to bring somebody else up. Don't let me forget. When we're done with this, do not let me forget to bring up the other defensive lineman that's in my head. Remember I said that. He's in my head. Then I'll remember who it is.
I think Carlos Dunlap is a lot like a Melvin Ingram type deal, where he's not going to get. He's what? Just let me finish. I think my comparison comes from. I think he's not going to get signed until early June again, at the earliest.
Yeah.
So I think that he ends up back here in Kansas City on another one of those deals. But I just think that he's going to be another guy that just doesn't sign until either right before camp or as soon as camp starts, or maybe a few weeks before, like July-ish. Just because I think he's the kind of veteran, he doesn't want to deal with OTAs or all that crap. So he'll sign with somebody. I would think that Kansas City is his first choice, but if he ends up going up to a place like a Pittsburgh or another place like that, that wouldn't surprise me. But I do think that his first choice is here in Kansas City.
Yeah. I think he would stay in Kansas City just to get that fat ring again.
Yeah, Derek Nottie.
I don't think he comes back. Wait a minute. Derek Nottie. I always get him and one other one confused. Name-wise, the last name always gets me jacked up. Because I'm very tired right now. Nottie. Let me think.
Nottie is not Saunders.
Yeah, I know. No, I don't think Nottie's coming back.
Yeah. I don't think that Nottie comes back either because of Colin Saunders. I don't think you can keep both of them realistically because they're both going to get a pay raise. This is, like I've said before, this is a pretty deep defensive line draft at both edge and tackle, and you're going to have to continue to rotate younger, cheaper pieces in there. I think Nottie goes. I think Nottie gets a nice, $5 to $7 million deal for another team, and I think when that offer gets pushed across his desk, the Chiefs are immediately going to get out of that. So I think he can go to another team that is in need of some rotational piece help. I don't know if there's a specific team that I can think of at the moment. I know that Ingram went to Miami, and so a team like that has good quality starters, but could just use that extra rotational piece, I think is a perfect spot for him to go. And he'll get a $7 million so like a 21 for three years type deal. Well, I think would be perfect for Nottie, and I just think that gets too rich for Kansas City.
Yep, I agree.
Colin Saunders.
Back. I agree. He's back.
I don't understand how you could let a guy like that go.
He'd be stupid not to resign him.
He's so good. He's so athletic. He's so versatile. The guy, You know, he literally ran down a scrambling quarterback.
A fast scrambling quarterback.
So I think he's the kind of guy, he can get that sort of couple years, $14 million deal where, because the salary cap's going up and you're able to manipulate some of the fact. I don't think that you can, like I said, bring back both Colin Saunders and Derek Nottie. I think you have to choose one or the other. And I think that Colin Saunders just has more upside than Nottie does. Yeah. So I think that they can bring back Colin Saunders because of that. But
any 338-pound guy that can do front flips, back flips, and chase down Jalen Hurts,
yeah,
he's got more of an upside.
On the other side, out of all of these guys that we've talked about, if Colin Saunders would be another one of those guys that I could see another team offering him that huge deal, that's sort of like what the Falcons did with Dontari Poe, sort of a flashback where they just gave him a bunch of money. I think that is something that could happen with Colin Saunders just because other teams are going to recognize the upside there. So I think that that's a realistic opportunity. If Colin Saunders isn't back in Kansas City next year, that wouldn't surprise me either. But I do think that Kansas City does try and get Colin Saunders back. And the last one here on my list is Juan Thornhill.
Okay. Well, that is a little bit of a toss-up. I've heard a couple of things back and forth about Thornhill. One, you listen to people you shouldn't listen to. He's never going to be back. Then you listen to people that you kind of know, and he wants to come back. They want him back, and they're considering working out a deal with him. And he's considering working out a deal with the team. I can't say whether he's going to be back or not, but I do know there's interest on both sides. That I know for 100% fact. So, Juan can go, in my opinion. I agree.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I do know from what I've heard that there is interest on both sides. Whether it happens or not, can't say, but there is interest on both sides.
I think at the beginning of the year, I would have told you that Juan Thornhill signs another contract to Kansas City. But with how Cook played, and later in the season, especially in the playoffs, he has shown that he can play in coverage, that he can play in that pure safety role. He played into that robber, rat role, whatever you want to call it, sort of that in-the-box safety, right? Cook is a versatile guy. He played extremely well, much better than I thought that he was going to play. So I think because of what he showed, you can let Thornhill go and get a payday somewhere else. That's the only reason I think that Thornhill will be able – the Chiefs can walk away from a guy like Thornhill because Cook just showed how good he is from right off the bat.
Yeah, I agree. I just, like I said, I did hear there was interest from both sides. I just don't know how well it's going to work out. That's all I can say on that front. Because I don't know the numbers. I don't know anything about it. In fact, those haven't even come out yet. I mean, that's not even been brought up. What's it say? I'd be okay with a 1 year deal for Juan. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing. Maybe give Cook a little more time to simmer. You know, I mean, hey, how'd you like that pun? But anyway, just kind of have to play it by ear on him. But I think we'll have to see how that plays out when it comes down to it. We got a few more days before that stuff really starts. But
yeah,
what is it? About another 2 weeks, I guess, 3 weeks. But
you want to hear my take on what the Chiefs do at right tackle?
Hold on, defensive players, really quick. So who was I really high on all year long? That simmer's a word. Brad. I don't know where you didn't even say anything the whole show, and then you pop off with a comment. Look, see this? Thank you. Yes, it is. I mean, Brad of all people, the IT guy doesn't know what simmer means. He told me he cooks too, Thiz. How about that? And he doesn't know how to simmer anything. He doesn't know when something's simmering. So, who have I been high on defensive line-wise all season long? Wanted him on the field.
Oh, you mean the guy that takes up 2 roster spots?
Damn straight. What's his name? I can't remember. I can't.
Wow, for a guy that's been so
I
high on top
absolutely
of
can
him.
remember. Can you remember his name? Danny fucking Shelton. That's his name. Okay, so the Chiefs have actually locked him in. From what I understand, they've locked him in for another season.
That's
That's
good.
right, Thiz.
That would see, that's interesting. That makes the Chiefs' decision on what they're doing at defensive tackle easier.
I
you can
am
let-
happy about this.
You can let a guy like Derek Nottie go because
Yes.
you know that you have a guy in Shelton that can eat up those blockers in the run
Oh,
defense.
Lord.
Like that,
Oh, Lord.
those sort of decisions make your life easier, and you can let certain guys walk because you know you have cheaper guys on the practice squad.
Yes.
This is why I have been so for the NFL letting you expand, not only expanding the practice squad, but letting you add veterans on the practice squad. The value there, because you can just pick up guys, from here and there, and maybe you use them, maybe you don't. If you end up don't using them, it costs you pocket change.
Yeah.
But if you do, now it makes your decision making easier
I am
because
excited.
you're not stuck to guys.
I'm excited, dude. I'm very excited that the thought that he's going to be here next year. Well, at least he has the opportunity to be here next year through training camp. And if he signs, and he ends up being a part of this 53-man roster, or if for some reason the CBA decides to change between now and league year starting, and we end up with an extra couple of guys on the roster, my hopes and dreams would, be met right then. But that would be phenomenal. I mean, I would love to see him on that roster next to Chris Jones. Oh, Lordy. Lordy. But I was hoping to see that at any point during the season. My God, can you imagine what an offensive line would see? If
I
they
don't know
saw
what
that?
you would do because of just how big he is. You almost have to dedicate an extra blocker to him.
Guy's
And with
got like
how-
an 87-inch shoulder span, man.
And with how good Chris Jones is, you have to dedicate a blocker to him. So you're just screwed. And that's the best way to build a defense.
Damn, Skippy.
How can I just completely screw over your offensive line? Because that's the defensive tackle's job.
Yeah. What did he say? What about the other DT Brandon we brought in late? The insurance guy? The guy we brought in for insurance reasons? I'm not saying he sells insurance. I'm saying...
Yeah, he's not a gecko.
Yeah, no. I think we brought him in for insurance reasons, if I'm not mistaken. Brandon Williams. I don't know what happened to him. Is he still on the practice squad?
He's not an unrestricted free agent, so maybe we signed him to another one of those, futures deals. But
Yeah.
I'm not
'Cause
sure.
that's what
happened to
Sheldon's
him.
on. That's
Yeah.
what happened with Sheldon. So
Yeah, you signed him to the I got dibs deal.
yeah, and we dipped the shit out of Sheldon. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm excited that we did that. That's actually made my day when I heard that. I'm like, oh hell yes! And then it came out the next day that we did that, and I was just like, oh, it makes me so happy because at one point during the season he wanted out. His agent was exploring other teams, and we wouldn't, we convinced him not to do it. But I'm just happy that we got him. Let me see something here. I'll tell you really quick. I'll really let you know here really quick there, buddy boy Brad. Yep, he's still with us. Oh shit, wrong button. Man, he's 34 years old. He's on our practice squad.
Yeah, there we go.
So he's still on our practice squad as of now. So we'll see. He's a big ass dude too, but he ain't no Danny. That's for sure. Anyway, I forgot we actually brought him in. We did bring him in late though. Anyway, who's your left? Who was it? Right tackle or left tackle?
Speaking
You were
of
right
giant human beings, there was a man who played both left and right tackle. He's in the draft this year. His name is DeJuan Jones.
tackle. Mhm.
He played for Ohio State last year. He's been there. He played for 3 years. Played basketball and football. But I bring him up because I think that the fact that he played right tackle for the majority of his career already gets him devalued by the NFL standards. As kind of unfair as that is, that's the way it works. So the fact that he played right tackle means he's not going early in the first round, which is good for Kansas City. He is 6'8", 375 pounds, and has a 7.5 foot arm span. Okay, that's how gigantic this human being is. He has
like a pterodactyl.
Yes, he has really good handwork when he is blocking edge guys. He has a really good punch and some good counter moves. From when I was watching him, he did struggle with pulling and like running down the line, which the guy's, a giant, so I can understand why it would be difficult to run. But the fact that his wingspan is just so long, even when he had players beat him on outside spin moves and power moves on the outside, he was still able to stick his arm out and keep guys in front of him. So his size alone is a benefit to him in making sure that he can have quality pass blocking reps, and he doesn't lose that often. So I think that DeJuan James is a guy to keep an eye out for. Because he's a right tackle, I do think he goes late in the first round, and that would be a guy that I think Kansas City should look out for because the tackle class is not so good, and he would be a great upgrade. And I think Kansas City would be okay with having it just one rookie on your line because Kansas City has dealt with rookies on their line before under this current regime.
Well,
So
yeah,
DeJuan Jones.
They started out with 2 last year, so.
Or Ohio State. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Ohio.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I'll have to look at some of his film. I mean, he sounds like a monster.
Yeah,
I didn't see, Jeff A., I'm sorry, I didn't see that, your message there. It kind of scrolled up into the screen really quick, but you're right. I didn't see that. It said David Webb is Denver's new QB coach. We're good against them. You're not wrong.
17-0.
Yeah, 17-0. Go ahead.
I just can't believe this guy. 6'8", almost
That's
400 pounds. I'll be interested to see what he weighs in officially at the combine. Damn, 6'8". I'm 6'4", okay? And it's hard enough for me to find jeans, so I can't imagine being 6'8" and looking for pants, okay? 6'8", 375 pounds. That is a giant human being.
That's a big dude.
Yeah.
Man, at right tackle, that wouldn't be such a bad thing to have a rookie there. Especially somebody of that size. That wouldn't be such a horrible thing. I mean, again, you don't want to... it'd be different if you had a bunch of rookies out there, somebody on the left side, on the strong side, but I'm okay with the right tackle of somebody of that stature anyway. Especially since he really rarely loses.
Yeah, I think that just because of how big he is, it's his pass blocking is, and even his run blocking is good, right? He's really good on those one-on-one guys in front of me. I got to make sure this guy doesn't go anywhere. Where he struggles a lot is trying to get down the line and getting upfield to block like linebackers. So he's not very good at that, which is something that you can work on, right? No prospect is perfect. It's interesting. I still just can't believe the dude is 6'8", and has a 7-foot wingspan. I mean, that's huge.
Insane.
Yeah,
that's absolutely
and that
insane.
excites me. I mean, you're bigger than most defensive linemen at that point. The fact that he even plays offensive line, I'd be interested to know why he plays offensive line, because I feel like when you're that big, they just put you at defensive line.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when you're a wide receiver, or if you're like 6'4" and good at catching the ball, they don't put you at corner, they just make you a wide receiver. That's why there are no tall corners in the NFL, because if you're tall, they just make you a wide receiver. I feel like there's a similar notion to that. If you're tall and big like that, they just make you a defensive lineman, like a tackle.
Yeah. Well, what do you say? OBJ is 6'8".
Is he really? Is
Yeah,
Orlando
he's
Brown
huge.
6'8"? Could
Yeah,
you
he's
imagine
huge.
having 2 tackles both 6'8"?
Yeah, and see, that's another underestimated and undervalued aspect of OBJ. The dude's huge, and some other fool on Twitter that thinks he's an analyst said something about Orlando Brown doesn't have a chest. He doesn't have a big chest. Okay, so what constitutes a big chest? When you're 6'8" and you weigh well in excess of 300 pounds, I mean, what constitutes a big chest? It doesn't sink in. It's not like he has a concave in his chest. I don't know what they're expecting out of this man, but again, 4th in the NFL in pass rush, or pass blocking. Allowed 4 sacks on the season, which is, by the way, more than he allowed his entire college career and his first year in the NFL. And how many did he allow his second year with Kansas City? I think it was none. So I just really wish people would get off his back. You start to push people and push people and push people. That's when they get agitated, especially when they're younger, and they do ask for the moon because they're tired of being fucked with. Kind of one of those things that goes hand in hand. But anyway,
Yeah, I'll just say this last thing. He's played all of last season. He played strictly right tackle, almost 700 snaps. Did not allow a single sack, a single hit, and only 4 QB hurries.
on Mahomes.
The DeJuan Jones.
Oh, yeah.
DeJuan Jones didn't allow a single hit or sack and only allowed 4 hurries and almost 700 snaps.
Yeah,
and then last year, and 2 years ago in 21, he played 13 games, almost 800 snaps, gave up 1 quarterback hit, 7 hurries, and 3 sacks, also at right tackle. So over, 1,500 snaps, he allowed 3 sacks and a dozen hits and hurries combined. DeJuan James, keep an eye out for him. I think the Chiefs would be very interested in adding him to the right side of the line.
Okay, so here's the thing. Goes late in the first round. You got Cincinnati, which definitely needs offensive linemen. 68 sacks on Burrow. Who else is in that mix? Cincinnati, Buffalo, and us.
The Eagles.
And the Eagles. All 3 of us are in that mix. Now, the Eagles are losing a couple of players due to... Oh, and by the way, for anybody that doesn't know, Jason Kelce is probably about that 80% mark of retiring. So, there's that. They lost their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, both to head coaching jobs. They're going to be doing some retooling. So I think they're really going to be pushing the draft. What's he saying? Who do you think is going to get... Well, I hope it's not us. I mean, it's not a bad thing. He's just, again, he's kind of injury prone. And that may just be the really crappy training staff they had down there, and medical staff. But these last 2 years, he's had it rough.
Here's a dark horse pick. You ready for this? I think the Chiefs, because they have so many draft picks, right? And you are not going to be able to keep 11 rookies on your roster again. There's literally not enough space for that. I think that the Chiefs trade up to number 25, 26. That would be trading with the Giants at 25 or the Cowboys at 26. And you can jump in front of a lot of those teams. I think the Giants are in need of just more assets, right? They're a team that needs more players and more shots at the dark.
Definitely, yeah.
And especially if you're going to be, they're going to be paying their quarterback now. So you're going to need more assets. And if the Chiefs are able to get to 25, I definitely think that he's going to be there. So it would put you in front of the Bills, Cincinnati, The Saints have the 29th pick, so you're jumping up in front of guys that need offensive linemen.
I will tell you this. If we jump in front of the Bills again this year, I think their GM is going to have a freaking coronary right there in the war room. Because I thought he said, the Chiefs, how the fuck the Chiefs jump in front of us? Oh, that was hilarious. Brad, I hope you have that film still because I need it. I want to somehow make a comic relief video out of that. But that was one of the best videos I've seen in a long time. I mean, he didn't know what to do with himself when we jumped in front of him. That was great. If we do it again, which I hope we do. Thank you, Brad. That would just be icing on the cake. And if we jump in front of Cincinnati to stomp on their offensive line, oh man, that might be one of those run down the strip naked moments for me. So that would be great. Oh, by the way, real quick, what's his name? Pep Hamilton has been the talk of the town. Not Kansas City, but the talk of the NFL about coming to Kansas City as a quarterback's coach. It might happen. There is some rumors. I don't really go off rumors. I usually go off what people actually tell me that makes sense and actually have some kind of insight. But I also heard that Kingsbury was kind of an option at one time. He has not signed a contract yet, from what I understand. Kingsbury, that is. I like Pep as well. Says I wouldn't complain about either one. I think Kingsbury might be the better option to a degree, just because he knows Mahomes really well. I mean, of course, he can credit himself to some degree of Mahomes' career, but yes, he is. I just don't know, which way they're going to go. Kingsbury was in Chicago. I know that. And I know that he was mulling around the idea of maybe coming here. He has to make a decision, and I know Chicago wasn't his first choice, that's for sure. If he ends up taking that job, that's on him. He may see something that nobody else does, or maybe it's a last-ditch effort. But, one of those last picks that you got to go with because nobody else took you. I would like to see Kingsbury, but that's just because of the connection between him and Mahomes, and Nagy for that matter. But I'm not going to complain about Pep. He's good. So, if that happens, that's great because Nagy, look, man, people could say whatever they want. Nagy's the next offensive coordinator. He is what he is.
Yeah, Andy Reid self-promotes from within.
Yeah.
So that's what he's done the last.
He was brought here for that, dude. It's that
times.
simple. Yeah. He was brought here. Said this at the beginning of the season. I'll say it again. He was brought here for a reason. Don't let the title fool you. Exactly what happened, not team-wise, but exactly what happened was going to happen, one way or another, and it happened. Nagy is one of those guys that can draw up plays with the best of them. With a good organization, he does very well. And Andy's got 2 years left on his contract. If he doesn't decide to extend after that, which he acts like he's going to, but if he doesn't, don't be surprised if Nagy doesn't take over that position of Andy's. So who knows, man? But that's kind of how this whole, and I said this on the shows, you were on them, Quentin, I think at the beginning of the season, and this is what I said was going to inevitably happen when Nagy came back. Don't let the title fool you. Thiz, I know you were around. I know for a fact you were there when I said it, so that's exactly what I was told, and it's exactly what happened. So I'm happy for EB. I'm glad he got a job where he's going to be calling plays and making decisions and doing the things that he didn't do here. So hopefully it all works out for him. And what I have heard and what I believe is going to happen, he does well there. He's going to end up being the head coach there. Because That was, from what I understand, that was part of the stipulation of him. And now understand that was his stipulation. Yeah, I'll take this job. I want to call 100% of the plays, but I also want to have the opportunity to be a head coach here if I do what I'm supposed to do. So, there you go. And I'm glad for him. I'm happy for him. But what's it say? Do you think the Chiefs might be interested in free agents, DL, Jerry Tillery, or defensive Colin Farrell?
I can take that.
Go ahead.
I don't know if Kansas City is going to be interested. And those two guys, first of all, they're both Raiders, so I don't know how Kansas City wants to deal with that. But I don't know if Kansas City is really going to be a whole lot in the free agency market in terms of defensive linemen, because there are so many quality guys that in that draft. I think you can find a Collins, a George Karlaftis type player, right? Like a guy who's going to be a solid guy, may have to work his way onto the depth chart and work to get reps. I think you can find those sort of guys in the second and third round instead of previous drafts where you would have to get him at like pick 20. So I don't know how much, the Chiefs are actually going to be active in free agency this year, just because they have 11 draft picks and they aren't losing any big name players. There's no holes on this roster as long as the Chiefs franchise tag Orlando Brown.
I agree. Brad, I know the medicine you're on because of your ribs is really fucking with your head. So I'm it's not, Colin Farrell is not an actor. That's Will Ferrell. He's an actor, but not Colin Farrell. It's okay.
When I read that, all I heard is Back to the Future. When he asked, who's president?
Yeah. He said no. What does no mean?
I think he is an actor.
Colin Farrell?
Yeah.
I got to look this up. I don't know about that.
I think Brad's right. I think you owe Brad an apology.
Okay, if he's right, I'll say I'm sorry. Holy shit, he's an Irish actor. That is Colin Farrell. Oh, that's the dude that was on SWAT. The movie SWAT. With Samuel L. Jackson.
I think you
owe
Brad something.
Sorry, Brad, you were right. You were right, buddy. I'm sorry. It's not the pills. He's actually a really good actor too. I did like that movie. What do you say? Yep. He's actually, I think he's like an Australian actor, if I'm not mistaken, or Scottish or something. But
wow, way to pick
Irish.
Two of the most opposite sides of the English world. You're either Scottish or you're Australian.
Well, here's the weird thing: he's actually from Ireland. But anyway, he's actually a really good actor. Irish. I already said that, Brad. Your typing is just—I don't know if your internet's lagging or what. I said you were right. You don't have to keep throwing shit up. Anyway, yeah, he's a good actor.
Brad, don't piss him off, because then I'm gonna have to hear about it. And
oh God, Colin Farrell. That's funny. Is there really a player named Colin Farrell? I don't know who he is. I didn't follow the Raiders that much. I don't like him. I don't like anything about the Raiders.
You don't like anything about the Raiders? I like the fact that we keep beating the Raiders. I like.
Well,
that
I do
about
too,
the
but I mean, I don't follow them enough to care. I mean, I guess I follow them enough to laugh at them, but their players are so, with the exception of a few, most of them you don't hear about.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to keep up with them. I did hear something about the Raiders the other day. What was it?
There's a lot of stuff coming out of there.
There was something pretty comical. It was Mark Davis actually said this was a something or bust season for them, talking about Josh McDaniel. Oh, wait a minute. Will said something different. Oh, he said Clein. He spelled the name wrong. That's what it was. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Okay, then. Cool. Out of Clemson. Former first round.
Well, we know Veach loves our former first-round picks. I didn't realize he was a former first-round pick.
Look at Brad. Okay, so here's the thing with Veach. If he wanted them in the draft, he usually goes after him full circle after they sign with somebody that they didn't fit with.
Yeah. So maybe, maybe they do. Maybe you get one of those, 1 year, $3 million, mostly incentives, or 2 years, $6 million with the team out in the second year, something like that.
Yeah.
I just don't get upset when Kansas City doesn't do anything in free agency.
Yeah, everybody seriously. Always gets so mad. I mean, it's like, why didn't we get this guy?
Don't be upset when Kansas City does basically nothing. Because
can you imagine what Twitter's going to look like again?
There's nothing. I told my dad this. In the first round, the Chiefs could draft anything but 4 positions, and they'd make the correct decision. As long as they don't draft a punter, a kicker, a running back, or a quarterback, they did the correct thing. Because there's no big holes on this roster.
No. Hey, I want to do a quick question inside the chat here really quick, and I want honest answers. And this is just an off-the-wall question. I posed this question to Quentin earlier. Quentin, should I ask this question in the chat, the one that we had the conversation about earlier?
Yeah,
it's gonna be, okay. All right, so if you were a... Shut up, Brad. If you were a...
Brad's coming in hot today.
Yeah, he is. So you're a owner, CEO of a billion-dollar corporation. You have a president, general manager, that calls all the shots. Calls everything. He makes up all the PowerPoint presentations. He put everything into place that made your business successful. Everything. He's been there 10 years. Under him is his, you could call him a right-hand man, you can call him an assistant. That assistant is the guy that basically hands out whatever the GM comes up with for the sales reps, for the employees, for the sales managers, for whoever it may be. And he hands those all out to those sales managers. Now, he's never come up with any of those PowerPoint presentations, those sales pitches, the menus, the ideas. He's never had to pitch any of those ideas. But yet, he's the guy that's been there for 5 years, 10 years, next to that GM. And he's handed them out to each employee. Go get him, Tiger. But he's yet never done any of the necessary work to make that company a billion-dollar corporation that it is. All of a sudden, that GM that has done all of the necessary work decides to retire. Do you put that assistant in the role of the GM that has never done any of that work and expect that company to be a billion-dollar company? I'll wait for your answers. Anybody that's in the chat right now, I'll wait for your answers. I want to reiterate one thing. That assistant has never done any of the work. He didn't write up the PowerPoints. He didn't write up the sales pitches. He didn't do any of that. All he did was hand off what that general manager wrote himself, spent years, days, and nights building to make a billion-dollar corporation. Scott says nope. Brad, what do you say? Will, what do you say? We got one nope. Brad probably wasn't listening.
Man, you guys need to just go kiss and make up.
I'll smack him around later. Let's see what just got here. What was it? I was partying. You guys party a lot in France, we're set. Okay, Reset, listen to what I'm saying because I know you were partying. Look, Brad, huh? What'd you say I was eating? I had a sandwich. My mom made me breakfast. Listen to what I'm saying, Brad. I'm going to say this again. Anybody out there that's listening, let me know you got your listening ears on. All right, Reset, listen to this. You are the owner of a $1 billion corporation. You have a general manager that has helped you build a $1 billion corporation because he has made all the PowerPoint presentations, all the sales pitches, all the menus, all of the programs, everything that you need, or everything every employee needs to make that a $1 billion corporation. He has an assistant that hands out those PowerPoint presentations, sales pitches, programs, everything he needs. Reset, you're a sales manager. You should know. This general manager built all of this, and so you're handing it out to your assistant. That assistant's never built any of this. He just goes around and hands it off to each sales manager, each salesman, each team member, whatever the case may be, and says, "Here, go get him, Tiger." But he's never built any of that. All he is the guy that is the assistant to the guy that built all of this to make this a $1 billion corporation. He's been there 5 years, 10 years, along with that GM, but he's never done the work to make this a $1 billion corporation. He's never had to because the GM has done it all. The GM decides to retire. The CEO has to make a decision. Do I let the assistant come in that's never had to do all of this work and take over my $1 billion corporation and hope that it becomes a $1 billion corporation again or continues to be one? Or do I have to hire outside someone that actually has the experience that's done the exact same work my old GM did? What do you think? Scott says I was a little long-winded. That's part of business, Scott. God. I'm going to go home. Oh, I am home. Brad said, yeah, no. Okay.
That's how you know Brad's from the Midwest. That's the most Midwest thing between that and saying "ope." That's the most Midwest thing you could say. Yeah, no.
It really is. All right, now, Reset, did you understand any of that? So we got 2 no's. Scott said I was too long-winded. Oh, no, he said
also
nope,
said
though.
nope.
Okay. Absolutely, you have to promote someone within the corporation to keep it going if the business already is successful. Okay, but let me ask you something, Reset. If this person that you're promoting has absolutely no experience running the business the way it was ran before, how do you expect it to be ran the same way? If he doesn't know how to do PowerPoint presentations, he doesn't know how to write sales menus, he doesn't know how to, talk to these customers, to give, has no communication skills, to talk to other billion-dollar corporations in a correct manner. He's never had to do this, but you're just going to throw him into the fire? He said absolutely no. Right? So you're saying you shouldn't do that then, right, Reset? You should find somebody that does have the experience? It's not a business ethics class. Brad, that's not what it is. This is a hypothetical. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4 no's. Will says would hire someone with experience. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4 no's, right? And we got 5 people listening. Where you at, Thiz? I know you're listening. He may be with his kids. I know he's got a sick kid. That's a big no. I deal with stuff like this on a daily basis. Of course, you have to weigh in skills and experience. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to convert this into something really quick. This is something that has been a hot topic now since Eric Bieniemy was hired with Washington. And I have talked to a lot of people about this situation. And I think you guys that have listened to the show for a while, before it was a live stream, heard my take on this from what I've heard from other people. So he had two things going against him when he went in on these interviews. One was his interview style. He was a little abrasive and a little bit arrogant. That was one of the things that I had heard. So the other thing that I've heard from somebody that was actually in on, a couple of people that were in on interviews with him, he could not give the owners and GMs the answers that they wanted. And when I say that, they ask a million questions, like how many plays have you drawn up? How many quarterbacks have you groomed? How many wide receivers have you groomed? That's just a few. I mean, there's a million, but that's just a few. They also ask about your interviews or your coaching style, which we all know that was an issue in the past. But the main core of the questions are, how are you going to be able to come in, run an offense, a defense, special teams, when you've had the best quarterback in the NFL that really needs no coaching? You're under Andy Reid that has drawn up every single play the 5 years you've been an offensive coordinator. You've drawn up no plays. You don't have a playbook that you've made on your own outside of the organization, which most guys do. You were a running back and you were a running back's coach, but you didn't work with wide receivers. You didn't work with any other quarterback besides Patrick Mahomes, and you really didn't work with him because you had a quarterback's coach that worked with Patrick Mahomes. And you did work with the running backs coaches, or the running backs, because you were a running back. So you're sitting in an owner and a GM's office, and you don't have a playbook that you wrote up on your own. You can't give them plays that you've made up on your own, but you're asking them for a job based upon your experiences that you don't really have. One interview, and I'm not knocking Eric Bieniemy. I want this to be very clear. I am not knocking him. I do have my problems with him because of things that I do know that went on with the Chiefs. Internal issues between player and coach. But that's totally separate than this situation. I am saying this for one reason and one reason only. When multiple people tell me this, it makes sense. When you walk into a place and they ask you these questions and you cannot answer it, and you can't give them valid reasons why you should be a head coach of $1 billion business, and they're getting ready to hand you, whether it be $4, $5, or $8 million a year on a multi-year deal, they're not going to give it to you. It's no different than any other business that you're going to be in. Everybody is making this out to be the only reason why he never got a job was because of race. Is there a race issue in the NFL? Fuck yes, there is. Has there been? Fuck yes, there has been. I will be the first to admit it. But I don't believe, after everything that I've heard from the people that I've talked to within the NFL, that was the reason why he wasn't hired. And I told this to Quentin earlier on the phone, off air. If he had the experiences that other coaches that were non-head coaches in the NFL, you drew up your own plays. You built playbooks on your off time. You worked with other quarterbacks that were not Eric Bieniemy. Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback that's played the game. You didn't have Andy Reid calling every single play, drawing up every single play, and then you calling him off a play sheet that he designed. It'd be a totally different story. Everybody says, well, Matt Nagy got a job after 1 year. Well, Matt Nagy actually coached other quarterbacks. He was a quarterback's coach. It's a quarterback-driven league. He also drew up his own plays. Everybody knew he was a play guru. He's very good at drawing up plays. He also had his own playbook. When he went into the office of the Chicago Bears, he set down a playbook that he drew up. Doug Peterson worked in the NFL for a very long time. They both had very long resumes in the NFL with doing different things within the NFL. If you look at all 4 offensive coordinators that came off of Andy Reid's tree, the only one that didn't call plays for 5 or didn't draw up their own plays for 5 years was Eric Bieniemy. The only one that didn't have a playbook that they made up on their own was Eric Bieniemy. And the only one that in the 10 years that they were with one organization and one only, he had 2 specific jobs. Running backs coach, offensive coordinator. He was a running backs coach because he was a running back. Not very many running backs become OCs or head coaches because they're very limited in what they've learned over the years. When you're a running back, you don't learn a whole bunch about the rest of the offense unless you really put your mind to it and you really want to learn everything there is about an offensive game. But wide receivers, quarterbacks, they want to learn, they have to learn everything there is about an offense to become an offensive coordinator. It's a little bit different than what a running back does. There's only, in fact, I think there's only one running back that's become an OC over the last 15 years. And he's actually an OC right now, if I'm not mistaken. I am not knocking Eric Bieniemy in any aspect, and I pray he does very well there. I want everybody to eat their words. But I also want people to stop thinking that it's all about race, because I promise you, if he would have had the experience that a Matt Nagy did, or a Doug Peterson, or even a Brian Flores, because Brian Flores had an ignorant amount of experience when he got that head coaching job. He just went to the wrong team with the biggest racist prick in football, and he got fired because Stephen Ross wanted the draft picks. He got fired having a two-season winning season, or a two-season, what do you call it? I'm getting on a rant. 2 seasons in a row he had winning record. Went to the playoffs, barely missed the playoffs.
Got fired because he didn't want to tank his team. That's why he got fired.
Exactly. But he had 2 winning seasons. 2 fucking winning seasons. He got fired because Stephen Ross got his compensatory picks, and he didn't tank when they wanted him to tank to get his draft picks. That's the difference.
Let me get my 2 cents in here, and then we can end the show, because I don't want to rehash out it wasn't an argument, but I don't want to rehash out our thoughts, because I think we just disagree a little bit on here, and that's okay, because we're adults, we can deal with it. So I think that, first of all, that there is a race problem in the NFL. If anybody who doesn't think that doesn't think that there's not a race issue in terms of hiring coaches in the NFL, the fact that the Rooney Rule exists and the NFL has openly admitted it over the last 2 decades,
absolutely,
and that Roger Goodell has even admitted that the NFL has a race problem. So the NFL has a race problem in terms of hiring minority coaches in the NFL. With that being said, I don't think that the only reason that Eric Bieniemy has not gotten a head coaching job is simply because of race. I don't think that, but I do think that it does have a part into play, and I think you're just trying to really hide away from it because it's an uncomfortable conversation to have if you don't think race has anything to do with it.
Exactly.
Okay?
I agree with
I want to
that.
get that out there, and just if you disagree with that, then there's nothing that I can say or do to convince you of that, and we can just move on.
Yeah.
With that being said, I will say that I do think that what Eric Bieniemy has done here in Kansas City, I think at least qualifies him to get a head coaching position, because there are other offensive head coaches that don't call their own plays right now. Brian Daboll doesn't call his own offensive plays. You can get offensive coordinators to do that for you. There are other guys, defensive coordinators get head coaching jobs all the time, and they aren't in charge of doing the sort of things that offensive coordinators are expected of. So I do think that there is a spot for a place like Eric Bieniemy to be a head coach. Eric Bieniemy always does well in press conferences. He did a great job in today's press conference when he was asked about the things LaShawn McCoy was saying, and LaShawn McCoy was not very nice about, nice to Eric Bieniemy, and Eric Bieniemy handled it like a professional, like he had been doing it his entire life. So it's hard for me to believe that the only reason he doesn't have a job is because he's bad at interviewing when, in those moments in front of press conferences where the stakes are really high because the cameras are rolling, you're just that bad at interviewing that, you just don't get it because you're that bad at communicating your thoughts in that moment. I also just don't believe either that he has no skills in terms of coming up with plays, running an offense, or anything like that, because if he was that inept at doing anything like that, why would Kansas City have him on the staff for 5 years as the offensive coordinator? You could convince me of that if he was just the running backs coach for the entire time and he wasn't part of that, whole ordeal. But we know that he's part of game planning because Chad Henne, and I also believe Travis Kelce, came out and said that he was the one that found the Jacksonville play, the corn dog play that Kansas City ran in the Super Bowl. That was his brainchild. So, and we know that because the players talked about it. So I just don't think that, there's not one simple solution to all this. It's got to be at least a combination of all these things. And I think sometimes we divert back to some of the simpler answers because we don't want to have the wider conversation that there's a race issue in the NFL. I think that's all of my points. And
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. The only thing I will say is I'm not saying that his interview style is the only thing there is, and I'm saying there's no racial tension or racial issue behind it. I'm just saying I don't think that's the entire reason behind it. And when I say, and look, Travis Kelce absolutely said on his show that Andy calls all the plays. He made that very clear. When he was asked, well, Andy calls all the plays. As far as I know, Andy calls every play. Travis
Kelce was one of the players that brought up that he was the one that came up with the play they ran, corn dog. That was...
may have, yeah.
That Eric Bieniemy was the one that found that tendency that the Eagles did. So my point is that the fact that, he brought that up shows that there is an ability to design plays. Sure, he hasn't called plays, but I've never seen a, checkbox list of, it's like, in order to be a head coach, you have to have called plays in the past.
Well, one thing that I will say is this. You said that Brian Daboll is a defensive-minded coach, and he's been a defensive coordinator.
Well, Brian Daboll was the offensive coach, but he hired somebody else to be his coordinator to call plays.
Yeah, Kafka. But the whole thing is that he was an offensive coordinator, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he was an offensive coordinator. He called offensive plays. Defensive-minded coaches do get jobs because they were a defensive coordinator and called. When you're a defensive coordinator, you call the plays on defense. You draw up the packages, you build the packages, you build the schemes. I'm not saying anything other than, I'm not saying Bieniemy can't contribute to plays, but there's certain things that everybody in the league has said when it comes to this. When you go in there and you're interviewing, they want to see that you actually can run a team. And if you can't answer those questions and you can't prove that you can run a team from top to bottom, for the most part, it's really difficult, especially when you have a quarterback like Mahomes and you have a head coach like Andy. That's what they're looking at. I'm not saying that he's completely inept and he's just an idiot. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I don't think they're looking at it as, okay, he's doing so well because of Mahomes, because of Andy. We know he doesn't draw up plays. We know Andy; those are all Andy's plays, and we know they know that. It's all around the NFL circle. So what is he going to bring to the table? Yeah, he can bring some stuff, but can he bring enough to get us to a championship? That's what they're looking at.
I just think that, I just think that he's more qualified than other offensive guys that have been hired over the years. He's more qualified than, just think of almost anybody. All of the college guys that have come into the NFL, I would take him over all of the college guys. I'd take him over a guy like Nathaniel Hackett. So,
I would too, and I said the same thing about Hackett. That's nepotism. because of who his dad was.
I
He was a
just-
3-6 high school coach.
I just think that there are guys that are, he's more qualified than, and I think that he should have gotten an opportunity to be a head coach by now. It's ridiculous that he has to go be an assistant head coach and an offensive coordinator in another system. And I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Nagy gets another head coaching offer before Eric Bieniemy does.
I don't think that'll happen. I think Bieniemy will get a head coaching job by the end of this year. I do. I think he'll get it by the end of this year. I think the only thing that was holding him back, I'm just telling you, from everything that I have been told, and this is not my thoughts. This is what I've been told. I'm just telling you, I didn't even really consider this to a degree until I was told this stuff. I think the only thing that's held him back is the fact that he didn't have any college experience. He didn't have any experience with any other football team in coaching other than the Kansas City Chiefs. Under Andy Reid, as a running backs coach, and then as an offensive coordinator with Patrick Mahomes. Under Andy Reid. With Andy Reid's novel of a playbook. I think the fact that he was at Colorado, he got in trouble.
I don't even want that. Should have no
I'm
bearing
just saying,
on.
it shouldn't have any bearing, but he didn't have enough time at Colorado to become, to have any tenure as a coach.
He's been in the NFL for, 10 years
10
now?
years. 10 years.
What happened back in the 90s shouldn't have any impact on whether or not he gets a job or not.
I'm not talking about when
Eric
he played.
Bieniemy just seems like he's a leader of men. He's always good in press conferences. He's always able to rally guys. So I just think that it seems to be multiple things that has continued to hold him back, and I think that it's wrong. I also think that there's got to be at least part of it to where, billionaires are going to do what they do, and I just think that some of them are, part of every coaching, time frame where everybody's like, hey, Bieniemy should get that job, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's those personalities that own these franchises that are like, well, I'm not going to hire him because everybody says I should. I also think that the fact that there are guys like who was it? The Miami owner,
Stephen Ross.
Who was one of the owners? It was Jacksonville. It was Jacksonville's owner was asked, about the minority head coaching, and essentially he said that it was up to the other franchises to figure it out. So I think there's part of that. I think that there are a lot of organizations that don't take the Rooney Rule seriously, and that
100%.
they just view it as a checkbox. So I'm not. Look, it's a tough situation because the owners don't have to come out and justify why they made that decision.
I agree.
So it's all speculation, and I think that's where a lot of this stupid crap comes out. But, I think Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach because everything that I've seen, everything that I've heard from press conferences, and I've watched a lot of those, what he did today, what players say about him, because it just seems like Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach and should get a chance. He should get his opportunity, and if he comes out and he fails, then as a head coach, then, he had his opportunity, but I think he should have that opportunity.
So what do you think the validity is when you look at and this is not me asking because I have anything against him. I'm just asking because I want to know. So you look at Brian Flores. You look at other head coaches, Vance Joseph. You look at coaches like those guys that got jobs first interviews. Okay? Maybe second interviews. Real quick, Bieniemy went through 21 interviews, including college, over a 2.5 year period. Why is it that those guys that had, and you could look at their backgrounds as far as their coaching abilities, why is it that they were hired on their first or second interviews and he wasn't?
I don't know because they never justify why they don't hire guys. I'm just saying that I think that Eric Bieniemy is more qualified than a lot of head coaches that have gotten jobs over the last 3 years.
Oh, he may be. I absolutely agree with you. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying if you look at from both perspectives, I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here because of what I've been told. I agree that there's a race issue in the NFL. I absolutely agree that there may be a factor, there is a factor that played a part in him not being hired. But I also agree that there's also a factor that your resume plays a huge part in it. And if, what's he saying? I could see the Chiefs giving, Pharrell a chance. Yeah, maybe. I can also see the flip side of it too, because and I look at it from a different perspective too. If I had a coach that came out of Andy Reid's tree on look, man, I don't give a shit who you are as a GM or an owner. If I saw a coach, an offensive coordinator that just came out of a system that just went to 5 straight AFC championship games, 3 Super Bowls, and won 2 of them, if they had the experience, I'd hire him in a second. I don't care what color they are. It's that simple. And I think every NFL owner in this league would do the same thing. It's not like they're hiring some guy from Denver that just had a 4-win season. They're hiring a guy that just came off of a historical 5-year run. So it makes that's where the conflict for a lot of people come in, is that why is it that they didn't hire him? That's my point. I don't see how race played that big of a part in it, given the fact that you can really look past somebody's color if you're a racist piece of shit, like Stephen Ross down in Miami, and I'll say it all day long, because that's what he is. You can look past that color, or whatever your fucking ignorant problem is, if you have an opportunity to get a coach that can do that much.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we agree on that most of this. The nuance between us is minimal. And I think a lot of people stand where we do. I think the part is just we just don't know. We don't have enough information to come to a conclusion. And so there's a lot of speculation out there. And from the outside looking in, he is a qualified candidate to be a head coach. And that's all we can say. And it's the end of the conversation. So
yeah, true.
I hope he gets a head coaching job at the end of next year. And I hope wherever he goes, he is successful in his endeavors.
I agree. I mean, I hope he does well. He did come out and say that he felt like, a 10-year run in Kansas City with both positions, he just needed a fresh start. I agree with him. He did need a fresh start. He needed to get away from, I think, everything and just prove himself somewhere else. That's what he's going to do. He's going to prove himself somewhere else. I hope all the best for him. I hope he does. I hope he proves everybody wrong. I really do. If people are holding what he did in the 90s against him, they're fucking idiots. Because I don't know anybody that's perfect. Look at Ezra. The guy was a crackhead. So he has no business holding anything against anybody. Stephen Ross has been in trouble for more shit than anybody can ever imagine. I think he was part of that sex ring that went on in Miami. So I don't know why anybody would ever put Robert Kraft was involved with that shit. So I don't know why anybody, just because they're billionaires, doesn't make them above anything. So nobody's perfect. Everybody's had their issues at some point in their life. Nobody's that perfect in any way. But there's I guess the whole thing is if it was me and I owned a business, and I knew that this guy had the qualifications in every aspect to come in, or even 80% of the qualifications coming out of this football team on a 5-year historical run that this team has been on, I would have snagged his ass up 3 years ago. If it was me. Or 2 years ago, I should say. After the 3rd year of this run, he'd have been a head coach somewhere. If he had the qualifications, he'd have been a head coach somewhere. And that's how I feel about it. But
okay, and I think he is qualified to be that head coach. So,
and he may be. I mean, I don't know. That's just what I've heard from the NFL people that I have talked to, and a couple people that were in interviews with them. In the facility, I should say, and a couple people that have been really close to a couple people that have interviewed, GMs that have interviewed him. That's just what they've said. Again, I wasn't there. I'll never be in an interview with the owner or GM. Or for a head coach, I won't, so I'm going off of what people have said to me. And it was weird because I brought this up prior on one of our shows, prior to Shady McCoy saying anything.
Yeah, but
And
Shady McCoy is just pissed off because he got benched by him.
it could have been. Andy benched him too. So, I mean, he can get mad all he wants, but he got benched. You know, he carried the ball like a loaf of bread, and he got benched. It is what it is. And again, look at the show he's on. That tells you a whole lot. I mean, that whole show is full of clickbait. But this was just this to me was a very important conversation because I can't stand the fact that there's so much racism and then also the nepotism that goes on in the NFL. If Nathaniel, a 3-6 head coach, or a 3-6 high school head coach can get a job, I mean, in my opinion, there's some water boys out there that can get a head coaching job. So you're right, Eric Bieniemy. If Nathaniel Hackett can get a job, so can Eric Bieniemy, in my opinion. So I just know that that's what was brought up to me, and that's why I asked the question, because I wanted people's opinions. It's not my opinion, it's just what I've heard. So I just wanted to know. And I brought the hypothetical up because I've been in business for 30 years for myself, and I've had like 300 employees at one time. And I know that there's people that have brought up to me, you know, that worked for me that wanted to have higher ranking positions and really didn't have the qualifications. I sent them to school to learn. You know, I actually paid for their school to learn the position so they could move up quicker. But it's a totally different, you know, totally different industry. You can pay somebody, you know, you can pay for somebody to learn an industry to a degree. But you can't pay somebody in the NFL to learn hands-on stuff like that. So anyway, I just wanted to bring it up and see what everybody thought. That's what was brought up to me, so I wanted to find out from the fans. That's about it, man.
Yeah. You know.
Interesting show. To say the least. But, you know what? I do want to leave it alone because I hope Eric Bieniemy does well, and I don't ever want to talk about it again unless he's doing very well. I want to talk about that because he deserves to do very well. Washington, the problem, I mean, what I understand, Daniel, whatever his fucking name is, Daniel Snyder's not good. He's supposedly not going to be running the day-to-day operations until it's during the sale.
Yeah, I don't believe that shit either.
Yeah, I don't either, but
because if you put your wife in charge of something, like, what is she not going to talk about it to you? I mean, so
well, I don't know if she even is going to be able to do it. I think once it goes up for sale, I don't know if they have the opportunity to run it, but I could be wrong.
No, right now, his wife is running it.
Well, I guess he got back in it. He did get released off of that suspension he was on.
Whatever.
But
It's just
I don't know, once it goes up for sale, he can still continue to run it. I think Goodell and the rest of the owners need to step in and say, fuck him, he needs to be out. Because he's a big piece of shit, too.
Yeah. We might as well let's just throw Stan Kroenke into this mess, too. As like,
yeah, no shit.
You know.
Hey, you know what, by the way? Do you know who backed him? There was 2 NFL owners that backed him out of everybody else, 2.
Back to Daniel Snyder?
Back Daniel Snyder. You know who backed him?
Jerry Jones, I know, is one of them.
Jerry Jones.
And I'm going to just assume Kroenke.
Well, I don't know about Kroenke, but I do know, now I lost his name. Jerry Jones and Ross in Miami backed him. Said that he shouldn't have to sell the team.
Yeah.
I think Stephen Ross needs to sell the team. They should have made him sell the team after what he did to Flores. Because he's a damn good football coach.
Well, and, you know, when he basically came out and said that the tampering and trying to tank, so. Yep.
It's all bullshit. But, you know what? Goodell has no power over this. That's the difference.
The owners pay him. He's the HR department for the owners.
NFL. Yeah, that's what he is. I mean, he doesn't have any. I mean, he can hand down fines and he can hand down penalties and he can put people on an exempt list, but he can't. People have a really construed mindset when it comes to what his powers are. He's a marketing guy for the NFL. It's really what he is. I mean, the owners have all the power. The owners in the NFLPA, they have all the power. NFLPA has the power over the players, and the owners have the power over the NFL. So they have to really. They need to put somebody in place that's going to work for the owners, except for the owners, because billionaires are going to do billionaire things.
Yeah.
And something's going to have to change pretty soon. But you know what? I think that's probably all we got for tonight. I really hope that, again, I really hope Bieniemy succeeds out there, and he gets all the players he needs, to make that team successful. Because he's got the entire offense now. He can do what he wants. He runs the show out there. He's got full power to run that offense. That's his contract. So it's his team. He does what he wants with it. And I hope he makes the best of it. I really do. So, and I guarantee you he will be a head coach next year. All he's got to do is have a good winning season with that franchise. He'll be fine. With that being said, guys, we really appreciate everybody joining in, and thank you for
being mature in our conversation.
Yes, definitely. It's always nice to have everybody in and actually be involved in the conversation. We had we do have a guy that's going to be helping us with some video stuff. We did add some videos. I'm trying to do this. I am no video guy. We did add some videos in, but he's really good at this shit. I'm not. So hopefully within the next few days, he's going to help put some... He's like a producer guy. He's going to help produce some stuff. Maybe some segment stuff. We're going to do some comical stuff. Have you guys join in, win or lose stuff. Just do some little game show shit. And
it's the off season. We got to find stuff to do.
Yeah. And we're going to do it through the season too. Do some really cool shit during the season, and have some sponsors get some stuff away. We'll get some stuff away. So make sure you tell everybody to join in, and make sure you subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe. So the more subscriptions we have, the more sponsorships we can get in, the more shit we can give away. Because everything we've been giving away is from me, from us. So make sure you subscribe and tell your friends to subscribe so we can get some more sponsors and giveaways away. Giveaways going.
If you like the Royals,
yes,
follow me on Twitter. I've been writing Royals articles.
Yeah, it's popping up on Chiefs Focus. It's popping up on Quentin's page. Follow us. So,
am I doing anything for the Combine? I will follow the Combine. I have a couple players that I want to watch, but I don't know. We'll have a show and talk about different prospects and stuff. If
Definitely.
This video thing works out, I'm pretty sure that the NFL puts their stuff out on YouTube, so we might talk about some players.
Yeah, and we do have the rights for that stuff, so we're lucky. We have the NFL rights to be able to use that stuff, so we will be able to put the videos up. We can talk about the players, and we're going to have a draft. We're going to have a bunch of draft stuff come out. We're going to be at the draft. We're going to have a lot of fun. So make sure you guys join in, and we appreciate everybody for joining. We will talk to you guys again soon. Peace out, everybody.